That Psalm 139, the first verse, that's a lot of people's favorite psalm. Lord, you have searched me out, and you know me. You know me. You know when I rise up. You know when I sit down. You even know what I'm thinking. You discern my thoughts from afar. And then Jesus in the Gospel of John. Jesus in the Gospel of John sounds a little different than the Jesus in the other three Gospels. A little different. He sounds, in the Gospel of John, like he speaks from a very divine, high point of view. He speaks as if he is God, transcendent, as if he is the one who can see you and trace your resting places. He can know your thoughts from afar, just like God is described in the Psalm. A little different than the other Gospels, where Jesus is more like the carpenter, hangs out with fishermen, tells a lot of stories. The closest thing you'll get to the way Jesus is spoken of in the Gospel of John is to read the passages of Jesus in the resurrection narratives in the Synoptics. There, Jesus knows everything, right? He passes through walls, he appears and disappears. The resurrection appearances in the last couple chapters, they sound like the way Jesus is in John's Gospel all the time. Not that it's critical to know this, I just wanted to share that with you, because when we hear the Jesus in John's Gospel, Jesus is speaking with the voice of God. He is speaking as the Logos. He's speaking as the Word of God. And he knows Nathan, the disciple who got called. He knows Nathan from afar. He knows Nathan when he rises up and when he sits down, when he goes under the fig tree and when Philip comes to call him. Jesus has intimate knowledge of Nathan and of everyone. I wonder if you think about it, if Jesus knows everything about us and sees us and knows us. You know, at some level, some basic level, that's the way everybody wants to be known. Human beings have this kind of cat and mouse game with God and with everybody else. We kind of want to be known. I want you to know me, but I'm kind of afraid of you too, and I don't want you to know me. I want to reveal myself, and I want to hide myself. I want to belong to a community like St. Andrew's, but I'm a little nervous too. Everybody wants to be seen and known, and at some level, and our scriptures show us that that is the way God knows you. It's the way God sees you. God knows everything. God is very intimate with your life. As the opening prayer says in our service every Sunday, it says, "And from you no secrets are hid." I take that as a comforting message, actually. God sees us, knows our resting places, knows when we stand up, knows when we sit down, knows what we're thinking. I was at the store, as I go to the store every week, going through HEB, and I decided I would make a thorough shopping trip. You ever done this at HEB or wherever you go? So I got my little card out, and I entered the store and went to the left and went all the way to the wall. And because I didn't have a list with me, and so I do that routine where I'm going to walk up and down every single aisle, snake up and down, so I'll see the thing that I need, because I might forget. If I don't go up and down every aisle, then I'll forget something, and I'll miss something. So, every single aisle, even the ones with the cards on them, and the makeup aisle, like, I don't think I need any makeup today, but just in case, I'll go down that one, and I don't buy a lot of beer. I went down the wine aisle, and up and down, up and down. And then when I got to the end, that's when I made the loop to go down the back aisle, where all the meat is, and the cheese is, and the milk, and that one long aisle along the back wall. And according to the psalmist and the way Jesus speaks, God traced my every step. He knew when I was on the beer aisle. He knew when I lingered around the sexy magazine aisle too long. He knew when I went down to the soup and if I was going to buy the chicken soup or I was going to buy the bean soup. He watched me as I went over to the avocados to see if one was too firm or too soft. He knew when I went by the corn and looked at the ears and said, oh, that's too old. God sees us. God knows us. Traces our steps and our resting places, even those that we're thinking, long before we even think about it. I think that's a good thing. Some people would be afraid. Well, gosh, if God knows everything, I should be worried. I don't think so. I'll share this with you. This is my point of view. God is so close to us and cares for us so much that He sees our potential, where we could be, and He sees where we are, and He knows the difference between the two. And He knows the path that we need to take to move from one to the other. God sees our potential, sees where we are, sees and knows the gap in between, and the way we need to change and grow. And He may be suggesting things to you every once in a while and encouraging you and challenging you, saying, here's where you are, here's what you could be. And you, come on, let's go. But that's an inside relationship between me and God and between you and God. That has nothing to do with your relationship with other people. I think when God sees other people and wants to talk about you, which is hypothetical, of course, He would say, no, that person is fine. They are good just the way they are. Don't be criticizing them. Do not be judging them. Do not be suggesting they do this or that. They're just fine. They're perfect. They're my kids. I know them. I know when they rise up, when they sit down. And as far as you're concerned, buddy, they're fine. If anybody's doing any judging, it'll be me, and it won't be you. What do you know about them? You know nothing about them. I know them. I know when they rise up. I know when they sit down. And I'm telling you, you don't. I may suggest to them a few things. You can keep your suggestions to yourself. In my eyes, as far as you're concerned, they are fine. So it reminds me of parents and children. The parents may have a lot to say about their kids in private. You know, honey, I wish you would study a little more and kind of help you with your math. Or other suggestions about what they might want to do. But I wouldn't have a neighbor come over and say, you know, Johnny, I think you need to study a little more math. That parent would say, I don't think you need to come back in this house again. I'll handle Johnny. You go back to your place. Or on the Little League team, get the parents in the stands. You know what? One parent can address their kid. I don't want any other parent addressing my kid. You know? As far as I'm concerned, little Johnny has a perfect baseball swing. And I don't care if he bats 0 for 100. He's a great baseball player. And he's always going to be on this team. And I don't need you telling him, oh, keep your eye on the ball and turn your shoulder to the left and maybe try to bunt every once in a while. I'll tell him that, and you can shut up. That's how I feel about God and you and God and me. God may have some suggestions for me, but when God's talking with you, He'll say, no, David's good. David's fine. David's perfect. Doesn't need any help from you. Same way from preachers back to congregations. You have a relationship with God. You know God. God knows you, more importantly. God sees you, knows you. The way you want to change your life and your potential and what you're becoming, that's between you and God. You don't need preachers butting in saying, I think you need to pray a little more, or you need to give a little more, or you need to, you'd be a little nicer over there. I don't think so. God knows when you rise up and when you sit down. God traces your resting places. God knows your thoughts from afar, and your intentions and your motives and your woundedness and your brokenness and your immaturities, and nobody else does. God knows what aisle you're on in the HEB. And it'll be up to God to make any suggestions he wants. Anybody else? They should be quiet. So there you have it. Jesus knows where Nathanael is under the fig tree even before Philip calls him. And funny, when Nathanael comes to Jesus, Jesus says, I know this guy. This is the guy in whom there is no deceit. He doesn't lie. He doesn't beat around the bush. He doesn't put on airs. He just says the things the way they are. Even if he criticizes Nazareth. Remember he says that? Could anything good come out of Nazareth? He's like, and Jesus says, well, that's Nathanael. He pretty much says what he thinks. He's not going to pretend. No deceit in him. Jesus, speaking from God's point of view, knows Nathanael personally, intimately. And if Nathanael has any changing to do, I'm sure Jesus will handle it. I don't think Philip ought to butt in, though. Philip, you just stay over there and let Jesus and Nathanael work things out. So, that's what I wanted to share with you today. God is very close to you no matter where you are in your life. He knows when you stand up, when you sit down, knows what you're thinking, knows what you need, knows what would do you harm. And nobody else really knows you as good as God knows you. Only God knows you inside and out. And as far as everybody else is concerned, God thinks you're fine. You are just fine. You're fine just the way you are. He may have some suggestions for later on, but God is a jealous parent. And in God's eyes, the one who knows you, you're okay. And don't let anybody else butt in and tell you otherwise. I know you're rising up and you're sitting down. And before everybody else, God would say, no, they are just fine, just the way they are.